Hello and welcome to the Capital Games Movie Club. I am the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero, you decided last week that we're going to be watching. Is it fair to call this a little-known movie, or is this actually popular in South Korea?
Um, it was fairly popular in South Korea during its initial release, and
Okay.
then I think in the West it got sort of more of a cult following.
Okay, so we're watching Volcano High, the 2001 action fantasy film directed by Tae-kyun. I hope I didn't butcher his name. Why don't we get started? And since you decided to watch this film, tell us what you thought about watching the film again this week.
As far as watching the film again, it was still a lot of fun for me, but I think mostly it's just some of the fun cinematography that the film has, especially since it was quite advanced for the time. I think really at the time this had came out, the only film that really played around like Matrix bullet time effects were really The Matrix.
Yeah, and the Matrix was '99, so it was like 2 years later. Yeah, so yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, the plot is silly as it can be, and the best way to kind of sum it up for anyone um, who's listening to this and just kind of wants a brief sort of synopsis, it's kind of like a riff on rival schools.
Right, and I think we should go to detail what Rival Schools is in case people don't listen to our video games podcast. Rival Schools is a video game from Capcom that's a fighting game, and it's about literally Japanese high schools and high schoolers fighting against each other. That's the premise of the game essentially.
Yeah, and then in the midst of all the students and student clubs fighting against each other, you've got the principals and some of the student council sort of trying to basically just plot to dominate the entire student body and everything.
Right. It's a super silly film. Like it's definitely not one to take seriously when you're watching. I don't know. You want to go into more how you feel about the film, or should I just get going with
Um,
my thoughts?
yeah, I mean, mine are pretty simple, so
Okay.
yeah, go ahead with yours.
Okay. I gotta be honest with you. When I first started watching the film, within 30 minutes, I got so bored that I got tired.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, so I thought, okay, I must be tired, so I'll just stop the film, go to bed, and the next morning I'll go ahead and watch it, which is what I did. So wake up this morning, and okay, I'll start the movie over and watch it, and whatever. Yeah, the boredom didn't subside. I watched this film, and I get it, it's from 2001, but even with that being said, I thought the use of special effects was really weird in this. Like it always felt a little off. Like I like the thing that I had an issue with is kind of like the force projection thing where the tendrils would come out of the guy's fingers and hands to lock
Yeah.
somebody in place. I thought that was really weird looking. Like I looked at that and was like, that looks off. The fight scenes are okay for what they are. They're supposed to be bombastic and loud and insane, but I just looked at them and was like, that's okay, I guess. And the plot dragged so much in this movie that that's what bored me to tears, is that you had so many non sequiturs, so many things that I guess it was supposed to give the movie flavor, but it really just made the movie more boring than anything else. That I just sat there, and this is bad. It's bad when I'm looking at my phone while watching the movie, going, "Oh wow, only 10 minutes passed. Holy
Oof.
shit!" So, um, I had issues with the plot. I mean, it's kind of silly to to mention the plot, I guess, because that's not the point of the film. But the fact that the villain, the person who's the villain, changes about 3 times in the movie with really no reason as to why, it just kind of bugged me a little bit. But as far as like the action, the stylization of the film, I mean, we're using video games is really the best way to actually describe this. So, your rival schools, using rival schools is apt. I would also say the action is more stylized to like Devil May Cry, and the overall story and presentation reminded me of a Suda 51 game. So I saw all those references and those feelings I got. It was like I could see those things. I think Suda 51 was before that, or was after this, so he couldn't have been an inspiration. But as I'm watching this, like I'm getting like I guess I'm kind of getting the references, and I'm kind of getting the feeling that the movie is starting to evoke. But it just dropped hard on me. Even towards the end, when the action was getting a lot more peppier and there's a lot more action, I still was not very invested. And the main reason I felt that way is because even with movies like this, like let's look for an example of a wire fu movie. Like you said, The Matrix, which is a good example. Let's use Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon as an example. Some people who saw the film thought it was silly how the characters were fighting in midair, floating around, and doing all this choreography while running up walls. They were like, that's weird. But in the setting of the film and the feeling the film gave, it made sense. It actually really blended well with the setting and what they were going for in the movie. I don't know exactly what Volcano High was going for here. Was it supposed to be just a bombastic action movie with some video game references? Well, okay, but then why aren't you just making it all fighting then? Why isn't this just an hour and 30 minutes where it's all fighting? Why are you getting involved into the school politics, which honestly isn't that interesting, to me at least. It seemed like a film in search of a theme, but it just used different techniques to say, hey, this looks cool, right? And it may look cool, but it didn't add to, I guess, a cohesive whole. So I just sat through the film watching this, and I was just like, yeah, that's neat and all, but what is this overall for? And it just seemed like it's there to be there, and that really does not make a good film for me. So I ended up just not liking this.
Well, that's a completely fair thought too. I think really the school politics thing, it is definitely one of the weaker points, especially since it's just kind of, all right, well, just we're all trying to fight to be the strongest in the school because we want the secret manuscript and all this other junk, and yeah, it just kind of falls flat on its face, especially when you get to the end, and I don't know if we would just want to just go ahead and jump into spoiler territory or not. But yeah,
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah, sure.
I just thought about it when we were talking. Are they referencing Shonen Jump to a certain extent in this movie?
I mean, it's kind of reverent to just sort of Asian action comics and stuff because while Korea doesn't have manga culture per se, they do have a similar medium called manhwas, and manhwas are basically Korean graphic novels. So a good one that a lot of people know is probably from Korean manhwas is probably Priest, which was kind of made into its own weird westernized movie.
Okay. So why I get that Shonen Jump kind of Naruto kind of feel to it is that the characters have these long takes of dialogue describing how they're feeling in a very direct way, which at times can be endearing, but most times just comes off as annoying. So I kind of got that vibe to it, and it just didn't click. So I think most of it, I think a good amount of it is it just didn't click with me, and maybe I didn't get the cultural references so much. But even then, I just even if I didn't get the cultural references, I don't know how they would actually enhance the film itself. So I guess we can go into spoilers, but I don't know. I just sat there watching the movie and wondering where this is all gonna point to, like where these disparate parts are gonna turn into a whole feature, and it just felt slapdash to a certain extent. Like they had to come up with an even bigger bad at the end that didn't have much time to build to begin with. So the investment there for the final fight was just not there. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Okay.
definitely did.
Okay, so let's get into spoiler talk for Volcano High. If you are interested, God, how can you see this movie?
Unfortunately, you would have to source a DVD of it,
Okay.
or if you've got some sort of um, place to roll the high seas and get a digital rip copy, then that's another way.
Yeah.
So
I
this
had
is
to.
not us advocating piracy, mind you. So
Yeah. I had to. In all fairness, I had to take your rip of it in order to watch this. So
yeah,
okay.
and the rip I had was a backup of a copy for anyone who wants to get
Mm, do you?
uh,
Yeah. Okay.
a little legally on it.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Um, was it the DVD or was it the Blu-ray?
It's only on DVD.
Oh wow, they didn't have a Blu-ray of that.
No,
Okay.
no.
Huh. Okay, we'll get into spoilers. We're gonna go into spoilers about Volcano High. If you are interested in picking up a DVD copy to watch it, you can stop here and come back to us later. We're gonna start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Um, like I mentioned in the review, nothing of this plot really got me. Nothing interested me. I think the main character himself is completely bland and uninteresting, even though he's supposed to be the most powerful kid in school. But I get the whole, oh, he, in order to not get suspended again or to get expelled again, he had to not use his power. But then they didn't do anything else to give the kid personality other than a goofy smile and a wave, which just was like, okay, is that all you're giving me here? Okay, that's all right. And I think my issue is if you're not charmed with the movie, you're just gonna become more and more annoyed by it. And I think that's just my issue. Is this movie didn't charm me at all, so I just sat there watching it, going, "Is something going to happen?" So, you want to get into plot and some specifics?
Yeah, so I mean, for a more detailed run of the plot,
Okay.
basically just Volcano High has had like an issue where just the students have always been sort of in a war against the administrators, and of course, finally, after a long while, things settle down. But as time goes on, uh, the students in the school always want to find who's the strongest fighter in the school.
Yeah.
And of course, this begins a new chapter because supposedly the principal has this super secret manuscript that gives whoever is nominated as the strongest student in Volcano High just mystical powers that will surpass everyone else. So it's pretty much every club, all for themselves, just trying to fight it out, get the secret manuscript, and become the ultimate school club.
I guess if they went into more detail about the school politics, I might have been a little more interested. Um, I mean, this another game reference kind of reminded me of Persona in a specific way, with the detail about the school clubs, but even then, like they all gauge in stereotypes to a certain extent. Like I don't know, Zero. I don't know, man. I sat in this film trying to glean something I can get attached to, and just nothing worked.
Yeah, and as said, I mean, I can most certainly understand too, because yeah, just if you may not have the cultural perspective, then yeah, some of it may be lost, but at the same time, just um, for me, it was fun as always, even if the plot is a little weak and all that. Yeah, and I mean, I can most certainly agree with you that the action scenes aren't like high cinema, but I mean, in my mind, they were fun enough.
Oh yeah, I really okay. To complain that they're high cinema is not fair. I mean, this is meant to be a fun movie. That it's not. It's not meant to be. I guess because I mentioned Crouching Tiger, I guess I kind of set myself up for that. But I mean, let's look. Like you mentioned, The Matrix that had some really good wire fu type of action scenes. I mean, that's also kind of a deep movie too. So, God, what what are some other wire fu movies that? God, I'm yeah. I got to admit, man, I'm actually when it comes to wire fu movies, I just know the popular ones. I don't know much of I
Uh,
would say the culturally relevant ones because I'm looking at a list.
the Tai Chi Master is one of my favorites personally.
Right, I saw that. I don't recognize these movies. Last Hero in China, the Kung Fu Cult Master. Yeah, Wu Jia, uh, Iron Monkey, House of Flying Daggers. I know of Ip Man. I know of. Yeah, I guess it's fair for me to say that. Like I know what wire fu is when I see it, but if do I have a large breadth of knowledge and I've seen a lot of movies with it? No, I have not. So yeah, that's a fair criticism, and that's something that you can take into consideration with my feeling of the movie. So okay, okay. I think the best character in the movie is the guy who runs the weightlifting team. Who
Oh, Zhang Riang.
Yeah, Jan Yang. He's okay. I mean, he's funny to a certain extent, but even then, it's just a one note character. Like, yeah, these are all like one note characters to a certain extent. You have the one girl who runs a specific club, who is the one that all the guys are pining over. You have the, I mean, you have the doddering all the adults, with the exception of the super teachers who come in about an hour 20 into the film, are all doddering fools, or they're just completely disinterested in what's going on. So you have that trope. And even when we get into the final scene where both the main character and the head super teacher uses their powers against each other, even then, okay, I'll tell you what my issue is. Okay, when you come to fantasy movies, you want to have the sense of anything can happen, but really you don't want anything to happen. You want to have a specific rule set, so when something happens, there's weight behind it, and you have a feeling of importance. When, let's say, a character like for Neo, for example, in the Matrix, when he starts to bend the Matrix to his will, to know how important that is, because you have the backup knowledge from the entire movie to show how important that is and why it's so awesome as to why he's doing that. I didn't get that at all in this film. I just got a bunch of crazy stunts and a bunch of halfway decent fight scenes that look good, but they're fantastical for no reason other than to be fantastical. So that's kind of why I just felt kind of off with the film, I guess is what I should say.
Yeah, and again, I mean, just I'm definitely not in disagreement with you.
Okay.
In fact, I do agree, and yeah, just unfortunately, just some of the things that sort of um, that are sort of normal tropes in storytelling, like the hero saga and stuff like that, they're unfortunately just told in a very disjointed way because, of course, just you don't get an explanation where he gets flashbacks of his parents and his sister telling him, "Don't fight, don't use violence," and
Right.
stuff like that, until like almost midway through the film, where he finally has sort of like an emotional moment and breaks down, and he's just like, oh God, memories, memories," and then they just kind of go into it's just like flashback for Kyung Soo, why he doesn't use violence anymore,
Yeah.
and it's just a really disjointed way of uh, telling the viewer, hey, this is why he doesn't use his combat abilities because just he's been conditioned so hard from being repeatedly expelled from school after school after school that just he gets into fights because everyone wants to fight him with his weird psychokinetic powers and everything, and it's just it's really unfortunate because just I feel that the storytelling on that little sort of hero's flashback could have been done so much better.
Right. And when they did the flashback, it didn't have the power that you thought it would. In my opinion, I watched it and it was still kind of okay. Okay, I get it, but even then, that's like okay, sure. um, but the fact that they get it halfway into the film, but the blonde, what's the blonde kid? Soy Kim or Soy? Oh God,
Kyung Soo.
it's not Kung Su. Jesus Christ, Kung Su. Okay, so he's the main character of the film, but you can go 20 minutes without him being in the film because they'll dive into the politics and into the different groups and the different things going on within the groups. So by doing that specifically, you kind of devalue the main character. And when you do that, you also have the issue when he starts doing these awesome, fantastical things. You're not given the attachment that you would want because you've spent most of the time going through the school and its politics. Now, if this were an ensemble movie and the point was the school was the main character, maybe you could have a better movie there. But the movie is clearly supposed to be in the eyes of this kid. For them to spend so much time away from that character in order to establish the rest of the film and the rest of the setting and the other characters, I mean, just goes to show how not well the plot is, unless they cut like numerous scenes from the film that could have established that, which I don't know if that's the case, but yeah. But then again, if you told me there was an extra 45 minutes in the film, I still wouldn't watch it because I would be like, I didn't like what I saw in the first place. So the graphics in the movie, this like stood out like to me like a sore thumb. Like when they have the fantastical like clip, not it's not fair to call it clip art, but you get what I'm saying. Like the graphics that they show, they pause, do a zoom in, and all of a sudden these graphics and words show up to
Yeah,
like
kind of like comic strip style, like
okay.
bubbles and stuff like that.
Is that like that's a cultural thing that I didn't get because I watched that and I'm like, this could have been done a lot better. Like this just looks garish to a certain extent. So that didn't mesh well with me at all either. But if that's a reference I didn't get, okay, fine. I will admit that. But I don't know, man. I I sat I sat throughout the movie picking it apart more than actually enjoying it. So
Yeah, and as said, I mean, even with as much love as I have for the movie, I do know it does have its flaws.
well okay, where you have love for the film, what about it do you love? What is it that you're attached to it?
Um, just just kind of the video gamey feel of it.
Right. Okay.
Just granted, the story's not great, but it's kind of short and condensed in all the wrong ways. Kind of like a video game, a story for a fighting game. Just
Right.
super minimalistic and all that sort of stuff. So, just I think that's where most of the fun is for me. Just the fact that it just feels so much like a video game that just encapsulated into a movie.
And I gotta be honest, like, I mean, we have a video games podcast. Of course, we're both big video game fans. Storytelling in video games is pretty bad, to be completely honest with you.
And doubly so for fighting games because
Yes.
the story is just bare bones.
Oh my god, yes, you're absolutely right on that. And as much as I love fighting games, the last thing I care about, which is odd, the last thing that I worry about is a story, unless that's where all the single player content is. But we won't dive into that because that's a different topic altogether. But if they went down that road, like if they went the Scott Pilgrim road, where you have a plot, but you pepper in a bunch of video game references and winks and nods and things like that, to where maybe an audience can attach to that to a certain extent, and maybe poke fun of those tropes from video games, especially fighting games, I think I would have been attached to it a little bit more. But I don't think that's what they were going for.
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
What?
That you didn't feel that they were sort of kind of going for a video game sort of thing?
No, I get the stylization of the fights. Like I mentioned, it's rival schools meets Devil May Cry, and with a dash of Suda 51 is what I like. I think the two things that people will probably know more of is, well, rival schools is like Street Fighter but with kids, and people I think will know Devil May Cry with its action where you're jumping all over the place, shooting guns and using your sword and doing some sort of karate and stuff, and the action is hyper stylized. So that's the feeling I got from that. So I get it's going for a video game feel, but I think what would have benefited this more is if they went more of the video game route. If they would have just, I don't know, if they would have just did a hour 30-minute movie about this new kid who has to ascend to the top of the school as school president by defeating all the masters of all the clubs, including the principal and vice principal, and it was just nonstop fighting, I think then I would be like, okay, this is goofy fun. And it's just meant to be interesting fight scenes with maybe a dash of drama, but the fight scenes are the key thing. I don't think the fight scenes were the key thing in this movie. They tried to make it half fight scenes, half politics in school with a very silly feel to it. And just those three didn't mix well together.
Yeah, and to that I would agree. And unfortunately, I think a lot of it sort of falls apart due to just the weak and disjointed storytelling, which is a shame because just I think if the film were structured a little bit better, then I think just it would easily be something that I would probably push much higher up on the recommendation chain because of the fact that just it's got a little bit more substance. But again, just I 100% agree. Just and it does hurt me a bit because, of course, just as said, this is one of my favorite sort of, I guess you can say, guilty pleasure movies.
Okay. I mean, it is super campy. I will give it that, and I'll even admit, campiness has to be done a specific way for me to enjoy it. and the way that this movie is campy is I won't enjoy it. So that could be a possibility too. Like I'm willing to I'm reticent to say this is a horrible film. I just didn't enjoy it. Like I can see the style they're going for. The visuals aren't bad. They're fine, but I don't. It just didn't click with me. I guess is the main thing. So I don't. I used to be like this, unfortunately, but I don't begrudge somebody to like things that I don't like. Like, I get why people will enjoy this movie, and part of it is not taking it seriously and just having fun, which I get that. I just, for some reason, it just didn't click, and I just couldn't have fun with it. That's my thing.
Yeah, and as said, that's a completely fair thought as well too. And I'm not gonna shame anyone to go, "Oh God, you didn't like it. You must be a terrible person who hates fun."
Yeah. Well, I didn't go that far, but unfortunately, I used to be like that in my younger days. I used to be the guy who would be like, "Oh, you saw that movie? Why don't you see this instead? This is better." And not be like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. Not my cup of tea." But, to each your own. Like, I used to be the opposite. So, yeah. And that's a struggle sometimes to be that way. So, anyway. Anything more to add that you want to talk about?
No.
Defend your movie, Zero.
Well, like I said, I mean, I think for me it's just mostly just the fun of it is just in the camp of the movie because
Yeah.
It's just corny, it's silly, it's not something that I would kind of say, "Oh, this is like one of the must-see movies in any martial artist movie, sort of like top 100 or something like that."
Yeah.
It's definitely not that, but at the same time it's also not an absolutely terrible movie either.
Before we get to the final discussion, we do have to talk about what MTV did in 2003 with this movie. And I gotta ask, okay, was this... How do I put this? What do you think led to MTV taking this movie specifically and having, like, hip-hop personalities and rappers redub the movie with their voices? If you guys look this movie up, you're bound to see either a trailer or a poster that has a scene of the movie, but on the bottom it has Snoop Dogg, Big Boy, Andre 3000, Lil Jon. It has these rappers that are in it as well. And what they did essentially is they took this movie specifically, redubbed it with those actors and those rappers in the movie. So what do you think? Why do you think they chose this movie to do this?
As far as that, I have no idea, honestly. I know I've been every once in a while, just the bug will bite me to try to go down the rabbit hole and find out more info, and it always just runs into a dead end. Just the only thing I could maybe surmise, and this was something that was brought upon by you, which was you had made a mention that the Wu-Tang Clan has a whole bunch of martial arts flicks that they sort of have the distribution rights and stuff too. So my only thought is maybe this was kind of like, hey, we think Korean cinema is going to take off. Maybe this is our way to sort of make our own legacy very similar to the Wu-Tang Clan. So that's the only sort of thing that I can even begin to surmise.
Yeah, and there's no I don't think there's any Wu-Tang Clan members in that redub. So
They're not. So it almost seems like a new legacy of sorts.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that version. I don't think I'll look it up because the few reviews I have seen of it is that basically, with the exception of Little John, which I find really funny to think about, the voice acting was bad in this. Not like purposely bad to be campy, just bad. I've seen reviews of where Andre 3000's performance is just awful, like particularly. So yeah, I mean, God, I mean, yeah, like after I watched the film, the first thing I thought about is, why would these guys want to redub this? Like, there's, like, I kind of like, even though I'm not a fan of the Wu-Tang Clan to a certain extent, I kind of get why someone would be interested in these types of films, because they are badass and gangster in their own ways, and and I mean, I'll even admit, like, rap, hip hop, like, not my thing, but what I got out of it is they do like flashy stuff. They do like good fight choreography and things like that, and that really appeals to, I would say, I guess, to that demographic. So I would get why they would watch these films and go, "These are pretty fucking cool." So yeah, some of the songs that specifically the RZA, I think, did, because the RZA did the score to Kill Bill, and the score to Kill Bill is fantastic. So I guess it just fits very well with the Wu-Tang Clan that they're into martial arts films, especially with how the RZA uses clips from those movies to do his music. But other than that, I couldn't really see anything on there that would make me understand why Snoop Dogg would want to redub the film into his own, to make it his own. I just thought that was weird. But am I interested in watching the edit? No. So yeah. I just thought I'd mention that, at least. Did you see that edit?
I saw little bits and pieces of it, and I was just like, holy shit, this is bad.
Okay. But it was like a purposely bad? Like, a wink and a nod that we know this is bad, so it's fun? Or is it they were trying and it just didn't?
As far as that, I couldn't even tell. It was just like, I don't get it. Is this just bad because it's bad? Or is it just you guys are just trying to be funny because just it's one of those things you want to try to be goofy with? I was just like, I don't fucking know.
Okay. Like I said, I'm not interested in finding out. So, but I just thought after the movie, I was like, that's weird. It's like, why would they do this? But anyway, okay. I think we have more to add, or are we getting to the final thoughts?
I think at this point we can probably just jump to final thoughts.
All right. Yeah, I'll go first. Look, cultural references aside, maybe that I may not get. I'll admit that that's possible. I spent 80% of this film being bored, and 20% of it being nonplussed by the action. The action's okay. They're not. Wasn't particularly impressed with everything. I thought I had so many questions about the direction that they went into the movie that it just seemed like it was a slapdash kind of, let's see if we put all this cool shit in and see if it works. And it just doesn't. Would I recommend picking up a copy? No, I wouldn't. I especially if you can only get it on DVD. So I would say, honestly, if you're looking for a movie like this, I would bet there are better movies out there. But if you're kind of interested in it, I mean, I guess pick up a copy. Just don't expect much. So yeah. Overall, I didn't like it. I wouldn't recommend it. But again, I'll fully admit that maybe there's some cultural references I didn't get. So maybe that's the case. So, but otherwise, yeah, didn't like it.
And me, I like the movie, but again, just it was something that when I initially saw back in the early 2000s and everything, it was just fun because just Korean cinema just had mostly been known for just lots of uh, drama and stuff like that. So to kind of see an action film come out of Korea was just really, really exciting at the time. So it was fun then. As far as now, it would be a little bit hard for me to recommend the film now, especially since there are just so many more martial arts films that just uh, have done things better. And unfortunately, with martial arts movies, a lot of the times, uh, as the movies get newer, there are better technologies, better ways to just do fight choreography and stuff like that. And unfortunately, for this film, as fun as it is, it just hasn't aged well, and that
Okay.
is something that I will concede to.
Okay. Okay. But I could it be this is our final discussion, so I shouldn't be asking a question to you, but I'll ask it anyway. Um as a time capsule, could it be interesting, or is it just like, do you know what I mean? Like as a window to the past?
Yeah, I
Would it
mean, I still think it would be kind of an interesting time capsule
Okay.
if you were to kind of look at it with the lens of films from the early 2000s, especially from Korea. I think that there can still be there can still be some curiosity with watching the film and everything. So if you don't mind sort of kind of winding your mind back to the early 2000s, then yeah, I think that um, there could be some appreciation for Volcano High.
Okay. Okay. So we're at about the time when we start to end this episode, but before we do, Zero, I have a question for you.
All right.
And as always, if you have a question that you want to ask me in Zero, you can leave a comment on the video and you can let us know what you want to ask us. Otherwise, I'll just come up with it myself. Today, the trailer for Blonde came out. Blonde is the biopic by Andrew Dominic starring my girl, Anna de Armas, who is going to play Marilyn Monroe. I thought that I would link the trailer to you, and you can watch it and tell me what you think. While you're watching it, I'll go into, I guess, my feelings of the actors and the director. As far as Anna de Armas, I've told this to Zero plenty of times, and he's probably sick of me hearing that. Sick of me saying this. I love Anna de Armas. I think she's a fantastic actress. I think she's very talented. I am. I have a constant thing that I say on Twitter whenever I talk about Anna de Armas. It's basically saying, I think in 10 years she'll be Meryl Streep. I think she's that damn good. I think she is. She can. She held her own in a movie filled with excellent actors in Knives Out, and in a film that is a fun film. It's not supposed to be a meaty film, but she actually was very charming in it. So it instantly made me a fan, and I started watching other movies of hers, and I really liked her in it. So I am more and more excited to see more films from her. Andrew Dominic, on the other hand, I mean, he does decent films. He's got a good eye, but I'm not a big fan of his films. I think the ones that he's most known for is Killing Them Softly with Brad Pitt and The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, which is with Brad Pitt and Casey Affleck. That film specifically got a lot of praise and actually got Academy Award nominations for both Pitt and Affleck. I was lukewarm on it for certain reasons, but other people enjoyed it. So yeah, and the fact that doing a Marilyn Monroe biopic, had me intrigued. But once you're done, Zero.
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as the trailer, it seems neat, and I'm with you. I quite like Anna de Armas,
Hmm.
especially since just my most recent exposure to her was from the new Bond movie, No Time to Die.
Yes, she was the best part of the movie, to be absolutely
Yeah,
honest.
loved her.
Yeah, I mean, she had a quote that got out there that some were pissed about. She essentially said it would be stupid to have a female Bond, and I agree with that. But if they went ahead and said, "Hey, guess what? We're gonna do a spinoff series with Anna de Armas's character," I'd be all on board. I'm like, okay, if we're gonna do that, cool. I would dig that big time. Um, how familiar are you with Marilyn Monroe? Are you familiar as a pop culture icon, or have you seen a few of her movies?
Really, my familiarity with her is mostly just as a pop icon and
Okay.
just the standard lore that has been built up around her.
Okay. So like the mystery surrounding her death, the okay.
Yeah.
Um I had a few issues with the trailer. Um the one criticism that everyone's giving this is that clearly Anna de Armas has a problem masking her accent. That is true. She does. However, um even some of the best performances in a biopic have not been those who ape the subject like one to one. It's ones that evoke the subject. One example I would use is the Nixon movie that had Anthony Hopkins as Richard Nixon. Anthony Hopkins looks nothing like Richard Nixon, but he played that character very well. Another, I would say, I think it's a popular movie, Walk the Line, which is a Johnny Cash biopic. Joaquin Phoenix looks nothing like and did not sound like or act like Johnny Cash. But he played that part so well that it just didn't matter. So I get if you wanted her to do the one-on-one impression, but sometimes just doing a one-on-one impression doesn't make a great performance. I think some have said that, and I disagree with this wholeheartedly. They say that Rami Malek's performance as Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody is better than anything on this trailer, and I almost puked when I heard that. I will be honest. I hate Bohemian Rhapsody. I think, with the exception of the fact that it had good tunes, and you have Queen, because Queen is excellent, so you're going to have great tunes in it. Other than that, the movie is garbage. 100% garbage. And I will not apologize for that. But I could see why... But I could see why people were expecting a one-on-one imitation and not getting it and being like, that's a little off. So I will curb that. My main issue is going to be the direction of Andrew Dominic. Visual-wise, he's fine. Like, he's actually pretty good visual-wise. He also had a really good cinematographer in The Deke, Roger Deakins, in the assassination of Jesse James. I mean, and if he has a very capable cinematographer, he probably will get a good cinematography in that too. But the things that he's been saying about this movie has me worried, to be completely honest with you. What do you think before I get into my reasons, what do you think the movie is going to be about, and what are they going to cover in this?
To be honest, since my knowledge is pretty bare bones,
Okay.
I have no clue.
Okay. So, the book is basically about Marilyn Monroe and the men she's been with. This is a one of the things it's about, but I think the main movie is going to be about Marilyn Monroe and about the men that she was with and she had relationships with and how they used her. Essentially, they used her for sex, they used her for power, they used her for money. Just basically about this person who essentially lost herself in becoming Marilyn Monroe, because Marilyn Monroe is not her real name; it's Norma Jean. So and basically her tragic tale is that she became so much like the character of who she is, who she became, that she kind of lost who she was in the way, which led to her untimely death, which some people think is not a suicide, it was a murder, but we'll get into that to a certain extent. The movie's gonna be NC-17, and the only reason something becomes NC-17 is essentially they still want to put it in theaters, but there is either graphic sex or graphic violence or both that it requires it to be NC-17. There is going to be a sexual assault in this movie. So that right there, like, I get why you want to have a sexual assault in the movie, but we've come to a point with violence and with sexual assault where directors seem to think the more graphic and the more disturbing it is, the better it makes the film. And Andrew Dominik just seems like the type of person who, and the way he's talking about this film is exactly how he thinks. That the more disturbing, the more graphic it is, the more power you get out of it. And I just wholeheartedly disagree with that. Like, I get why some movies do it. And you have to be very careful with how you do that stuff. But the way he's the way he was asked why did it need to be an NC-17 film, and his answer was, because I prefer to make an effing NC-17 Marilyn Monroe film than a watered down R-rated Marilyn Monroe film, which to me is just like, okay, it's like that holds no creative weight. That's
Yeah,
weird.
it seems kind of childish. It's just like,
Yeah.
well, I'm doing it because I'm gonna make a hardcore Marilyn Monroe film.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, the real question is if it's gonna be any good.
Right. Exactly. And God, man, oh, you can infer a sexual assault, or you can pretty much put the pieces together that happened and still have power to it and still make it a victim story and stuff like that. You don't have to show a graphic assault to get the power you need. And the fact that it is going to be an NC-17 film and he is that cavalier about it makes me think that he's just doing it to up the controversy, to up the disturbing quotient, to get people talking, to think, oh, I've got to see this because it has this really disturbing scene in it. Not that it's important and vital to the film. I'm not looking forward to watching the film because of it, but because it has Ana de Armas in it, I'm torn because if she pulls this off, I want to see it. But I don't want to see her get brutally raped. So I'm torn on this. So with the trailer, it looks good, but automatically reading the comments of Andrew Dominik has me thinking I might have second thoughts on this. So
Yeah, and as said, I mean, I can definitely see where you're coming from, and yeah, just I too would also be worried too because yeah, just the comment of it just comes off as being extremely cavalier of saying something to the tune of, well, I'm making the hardcore Marilyn Monroe film that no
Right.
one wants to make,
right.
and it's just like, okay, well, there. Are you doing anything that has merit to those claims, or are you just kind of puffing your chest up because you can?
Yeah. Now, let's also be fair. The book that is based off of, I believe, was a Pulitzer Prize finalist. So the book itself is supposed to be fantastic. But that also doesn't mean it's going to make a good movie. So I am really curious as to how this turns out. If it turns out to be bad, unfortunately, it would probably damage Ana de Armas' good record. But then again, she's been in bad films too, so that's not like she's in The Gray Man, which has been getting lambasted, but no one talks about her role in it, so I think she was just given an kind of role, so it was forgettable, so no one cares. But man, my thing is I would hate for this to be a movie where it does so poorly that it damages the actress's credibility. And that is a possibility in this. So, because of the director and the direction he's going to go into. So I really hope this is a good movie, but I'm starting to be worried a little bit. I guess is my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and again, just it's a completely fair thought because yeah, just the cavalier attitude just isn't really a good look in my opinion. It 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 just makes him seem like that just the the higher rating is all due to just kind of make shock and awe, not really have any true substance, which
Right.
I would hate for that to be the case, especially if this is a truly good movie, because that would be an absolute crying shame to just have a movie absolutely tarnished because just this edgy opinion on why his film is going to be the definitive Marilyn Monroe biopic, all because he's going for a much more shocking and titillating rating than
Right.
just to tell a good story.
Right. Now, I'm not prudish to sex. One of my favorite movies of all time is Y Tu Mama Tambien, and that didn't get a rating because of its graphic sex. Like they show penis, they show vagina, they show ass, they show tits, they show everything in the movie. There was a rumor that the sex was non-simulated, which is false. It is simulated, but the choreography of the sex scenes are like so well done, they look unsimulated. Do you know the difference between unsimulated and simulated sex?
No.
Okay. Simulated is basically that they fake having sex, and unsimulated is that they show insertion of inside body parts. So you actually see the actor or actress inserting their penis into a woman's vagina or a butt, and you're actually seeing them perform the actual act. Whereas simulated is basically they're miming it, and they may show their parts, but there's camera tricks and there's body tricks that they can use to make it seem like they're having sex, but they're really not. That's what simulated unsimulated is. The vast majority of movies that have sex is simulated. Like they fake it. There are maybe one or two examples of popular films that have unsimulated sex. I think The Last Tango in Paris is an example that has unsimulated sex. So, yeah. So, yeah, like, having graphic sex in the film is not a big issue with me. Having rape in it does. I fully admit I don't like watching, like, I actually actively avoid watching films with graphic rape scenes or rape scenes in general. So, that's going to turn me off, like, a bit, like a good amount to watch this film. But like even then, like I understand why some films have it. There's a movie called The Accused that uses the rape scene in the movie to a devastating effect, to where if it was taken out, it kind of lessened the power of the film. So I understand that, but yeah, the comments of the director has me worried big time. So yeah. Okay. We're at the end of the podcast, and we're going to discuss the next one we're watching. This one is let me get it here, 2011 film. It's actually a pretty popular film, and the film that we're talking about is Gareth Evans' 2011 action film, The Raid Redemption, starring Iko Uwais, Anna George, and Ray oh my god, I gotta get these names right. Sheatepe. This film is actually pretty well known. I'll paste it on there for you, Zero. This is actually a pretty well known film. So, if you want to watch it with us, you'll be able to watch it on HBO Max. So if you want to get involved and comment on it when the episode pops up, you can go ahead and watch it with us. So on that note, we're going to end this episode of the Capital Games Movie Club. Tune in next week where we talk about The Raid Redemption from 2011, directed by Gareth Evans. I am The Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
And we will talk to you next week.